Imagine a country so rich in resources, it was once called the hope of the black race. By 1950, this region of Nigeria produced more than 120,000 tons of cocoa per year, with Ibadan City as the hub for cocoa trading, 150,000 tons of palm oil, 45,000 tons of rubber, 500,000 cubic meters of timber, and more. This region produced more than 400,000 tons of peanuts, with Kano City as the trading hub for African peanuts, 35,000 tons of cotton, and hundreds of thousands of livestock, and more. This region produced coal, timber, rubber, and palm oil. And by 1956, unimaginable reserves of oil was found here in a village called Oloibiri, making Nigeria the 6th largest producer of oil in the whole world by 1970s. Now, fast forward to 2024. 63 years after independence, Nigeria now borrows money to pay its workers, has less than $4 billion in its net foreign reserves, and spends unbelievable 96% of its revenue to service debt. With inflation rates at 26.7% and more than 82 million Nigerians living below $1 per day, the most populous black nation does need an economic miracle. This is the story of Nigeria's economic crisis, a story of missed opportunities, political corruption, and the struggle for a better future.
In recent times, Nigeria's economy has been characterized by recessions and persistently low growth.
The World Bank says Nigeria's constant fiscal deficit has worsened. The nation's public debt stock with 96.3% of government revenue spent on servicing debt in 2022.
Nigeria's inflation rate.
Inflation
22.22%.
133 million Nigerians
below the poverty line.
Nigeria's total public debt
77 trillion naira.
Negative growth.
Declined.
Further decline.
Poverty.
Multi-dimensional poverty.
Everything's getting worse in Nigeria.
Nigeria is slowly but steadily sliding towards insolvency and may even begin to default on our financial commitments if there is no remarkable change in the short term.
On June 24, 1923, a Nigerian journalist and civil engineer, Olayinka Herbert Macaulay, founded the Nigerian National Democratic Party. Herbert Macaulay was a fearless, outspoken, and sometimes aggressive critic of British colonial rule. His followers nicknamed him the Wizard of Keston Hall, the Black Bishop, and the HM, which in Nigeria stands for Headmaster. All these scary nicknames give you the impression that Macaulay was a man who was ready to punch the Queen of England in the face if he had a chance. On page 116 of his 1960 autobiography, Awo, one of the founding fathers of Nigeria, Obafemi Awolowo, wrote, Herbert Macaulay was not only an uncompromising critic of colonialism and white rule, but he was also a ruthless denigrator of any African who associated and was friendly with white officials. The NNDP, founded by Macaulay, was the first well-known nationalist movement in Nigeria, which means this was the first time there was an organized body to demand the political, social, and economic rights of Nigerians from the British colonial rule. But you may want to ask, what exactly do we mean by economic rights? You see, in the 1920s and 30s Nigeria, there was an apartheid regime similar to, but not as intense as that of South Africa. First, let's talk about the social and political rights of Nigerians under British rule. For example, even though the Nigerian National Democratic Party Macaulay founded in 1923 had the word Nigeria in its name, this party was not allowed to operate across Nigeria. NNDP only operated from Lagos because until 1936, no Nigerian was allowed to create, operate, or be a member of any political party except two Nigerian towns, Lagos and Calabar. It's not only that you couldn't operate a political party other than in two Nigerian towns, it was also that if you did operate political parties in those two British-approved towns, you may become a special target of British rulers. For example, in the biography of Herbert Macaulay titled Life of Herbert Macaulay, written by I.B. Thomas, there was an account of how Macaulay traveled from Lagos to a town called Iroko in Oyo Province on 20th February 1923. His travel was for his work as an engineer, but when he landed in Oyo, he was given 12 hours to leave the town. Captain W.A. Ross, who was the senior resident of Oyo Province, told Macaulay, "You have a bad reputation as an agitator." Macaulay had to escape under the cover of darkness and reach Eba by 2:45 a.m. on 21st February 1923. Did I tell you earlier that this guy could punch the Queen in the face? Nah. Anyway, I don't want to waste your time with Nigerian politics and human rights issues under British rule because this video is about the Nigerian economy. So let's get into what the Nigerian economy looked like under British rule. First of all, under British rule, there were European posts in companies and government services of Nigeria. These European posts worked like the South African job reservation under the apartheid regime. It simply means that there were jobs and positions in Nigerian labor markets you could never have if you were black. For example, this guy who had a PhD may not get a job as a lecturer at Nigerian University while a white dude with BSc would be hired. Second of all, in the banking sector and what they called commercial houses in those days, your color was your credit score. If you were white, you get a huge loan. Black? Come back later. Third of all, I'm not sure that's correct grammar, but who cares? For the farm produce being harvested in Nigeria, cocoa, timber, peanuts, palm oil, etc., European leaders created what they called an agreement. For example, there was a cocoa buying agreement, sometimes called cocoa pool, for the cocoa farmers of the western Nigeria. Cocoa buying agreement is a price control system imposed by the British rulers on Nigerian cocoa farmers. It means that the government would dictate, for example, that the price of 1 ton of cocoa is $27, and that's it. What this meant is that even during the off-season when a ton of cocoa should be sold for $50, Nigerian farmers must still sell their cocoa at British government-controlled prices, making Nigerian farmers poorer while British companies became richer. But you may want to ask, how did the British get richer with this arrangement? Well, the British companies and governments bought ridiculously cheap farm products from Nigeria, exported them to Britain as raw materials for their industries, and made crazy money from the finished goods. When next you hear an African man claiming that Europe stole their wealth, now you know what it means.
Imperialism is theft. The imperialists go around the world, they steal from other people, particularly they steal the land of other people, and then they enslave the other people in their land.
After I've painted what it was like to live in Nigeria under British rule, you probably now understand why Nigerian fathers wanted independence and hope that such independence will lead to economic liberation of the country.
Long remembering, history had been made in and by the Western region. The future, with all its golden promise, lay ahead.
One united country, equality of opportunity for all citizens and inhabitants.
Her Majesty's government agreed to April 2nd, 1960 as the target date for Nigeria's independence.
Last Saturday, the country which I have the honor to represent, the Federation of Nigeria, became independent.
On October 1st, 1960, Nigeria gained independence. But there was a problem. While Nigerians were overjoyed that they had chased away the British who had dominated their territory and resources for 60 years, there was one invisible enemy already present in the territory of Nigeria by 1960. This invisible enemy would lead to 5 big problems that would later make it almost impossible for the Nigerian state to realize its dreams of economic revolution. If you give me a second, I'll show you the enemy. On June 15, 1956, Nigeria discovered crude oil in a small village of Oloibiri in present-day Bayelsa State. The first Nigerian oil well to be drilled went as deep as 12,000 feet and gushed with crude oil, marking a momentous occasion in Nigeria's history. Further exploration efforts revealed that this entire region is filled with nothing but oil. By the 1960s, Nigeria was one of the world's largest oil producers, and that led to 5 unexpected problems. According to the Central Bank of Nigeria 2002 reports, this is the contributions of three major sectors of Nigeria's economy to the GDP between 1960 and 2002: agriculture, manufacturing, and crude petroleum. By 1960, agriculture was contributing 64.1% to the Nigerian GDP. By 1970, it was 47.6%, but by 2002, it was just 28%. You may want to ask, why is this number going down? Well, have a look at the crude petroleum. By 1960, petroleum contributed only 0.3% to the Nigerian economy. It was 7.1% by 1970, but wait for it, by 2000, crude oil was contributing a whopping 47.5% to the Nigerian GDP. Now we can understand why the agriculture sector of the Nigerian economy is contributing less and less to the economy each year. The same with manufacturing. By 1960, manufacturing was contributing 4.8% to the Nigerian economy. By 2000, however, it was only 3.4%. What you notice in this chart is that the more oil Nigeria extracts from its soil, the less attention is paid to the other sectors of the economy. Someone may want to ask, why? Why does Nigeria pay less attention to its manufacturing and agricultural industries the more oil it extracts? The answer to that question is simple. Oil money is the easiest money in the world. Oil money is like inheritance money. Imagine you're 17 years old and you are given two options. Go and start a business that could make you $1 million or inherit $1 million. Which would you choose? For a country to make money from oil, all you have to do is to invite some oil companies like Shell to extract your crude. These companies do every single work. You as a government don't have to do anything but collect a percentage of the revenue. That is easier than writing the script for this video. Because oil money is easy money, several studies have shown that countries that have a lot of natural resources like oil tend to focus on the oil money while ignoring other sectors of the economy like manufacturing and agriculture because those sectors need a lot of work to build. This then leads to what Michael Ross called the paradox of plenty in his 1959 paper. One example of this paradox is unemployment. You see, by its nature, extracting and exporting crude oil doesn't require a lot of people. For example, if you search Google for the term, how many people does Shell Petroleum employ in Nigeria? This is what you get. 2,500 direct employees and 10,000 contract staff. Even though Shell is the biggest oil company in Nigeria, extracting 40% of Nigeria's crude, it only needs 12,500 people to do it. Unlike manufacturing or agriculture, which can employ tens of millions of people, the search I showed you now shows that the entire crude extraction industry of Nigeria can't even employ 30,000 Nigerians. When you remember that Nigeria has 75.5 million people in its labor market, you start to see why unemployment has always been a big problem in Nigeria's history.
Africa's most populous nation and largest economy has a youth unemployment problem. In Nigeria, nearly a quarter of the population is out of work.
Nigeria is perhaps the third country in the world with the highest number of unemployed people.
76 million
still looking for work.
No job to do.
Fake job. Frustrating experience. It wasn't funny at all.
Job seekers stampede. Children.
The Nigerian Economic Summit Group has projected that unemployment rate in the country is likely to increase to 37%.
An economy that depends on manufacturing looks like this. Each of these stars represents an industry, example, textile, automobile, or footwear. Under each of these stars are tens of companies headed by different individuals. In a resource-dependent economy like Nigeria, however, the economy looks like this. It's one big tap everyone drinks from. While corruption is possible in this economy, it's 100 times easier in this one. Because everything a president or head of state has to do is to appoint his girlfriend as the head of the Nigerian Petroleum Ministry, and 50% of the revenue coming from this staff can easily be diverted into some private accounts.
The former Minister of Petroleum, Desiani Alison Madueke, named in fraud involving about $144 million worth of assets allegedly offered to her as bribe by two Nigerian businessmen.
For the People's Democratic Party Social Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, and African Network on Environment and Economic Justice, ANEJ, have called for the immediate investigation into the alleged breach of due process in the $25 billion contract award involving the Group Managing Director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation NNPC, Dr. Maikanti Baru.
Joint committees on petroleum, that's upstream and downstream, and gas, will this week begin a probe of companies, heads of government agencies and parastatals after they uncovered an alleged fraud of 10 trillion naira by staff of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation.
Prominent former Nigerian oil minister has been charged with bribery offences and appears in London court.
The Office of the Auditor General of the Federation has presented a report to the National Assembly detailing what he called massive fraud and financial irregularities in the NNPC.
The problem, however, with corruption is that it's like a cancer. Though cancer can start small in one part of your body, it can also spread everywhere. As of today, the cancer of corruption has successfully spread everywhere in every sector of the Nigerian economy.
The Federal High Court in Lagos has convicted the former governor of Abia State, Orji Uzor Kalu, who was charged with 7.1 billion naira.
The Federal High Court in Abuja has convicted and sentenced the former chairman of the Pension Reform Task Team to 61 years imprisonment for money laundering,
misappropriation of funds,
and the diversion of funds,
embezzlement, bribery,
corruption,
stealing of 2 billion naira,
2 billion naira,
7.2 billion,
7.9 billion,
195 billion.
Threats to Nigerian democracy.
The latest reports on the Corruption Perception Index, Nigeria has once again dropped places to rank 154 out of 180 countries.
With massive corruption comes several roads that the government has allocated money for, but were never fixed. Hospitals, schools, and social projects that billions of dollars have been allocated for, and that money has disappeared into private pockets.
Staying with abandoned business projects, we shall take you to Port Harcourt in Rivers State, South Nigeria, where a multi-million naira ultra-modern shopping mall has been abandoned by the state government since 2007.
After spending more than $8 billion on Ajaokuta Steel Complex, Nigeria imports 837 billion naira steel.
Designed to be the signature identity for the seat of power in Nigeria, right here in Nigeria's capital. This is the Millennium Towers, which was inaugurated back in 2005 by the former president Olusegun Obasanjo. Well, a budgetary plan of about 69 billion naira was earmarked for this project. But 17 years down the line, this giant still remains fallow.
In August 2021, the Nigerian Institute of Quantity Surveyors disclosed that there are over 56,000 abandoned projects in all sectors across the country, estimated to cost about 12 trillion naira.
Have you ever wondered why someone like Mike Tyson, MC Hammer, and many other celebrities made hundreds of millions of dollars and wasted everything in a few years? Psychologists call the phenomenon optimism bias. Optimism bias is the tendency to overestimate the likelihood of positive events and underestimate the likelihood of negative events. What this means for a country like Nigeria is that when the price of oil is high, people in government often think it will remain high forever. Hence, they share every dollar the country earns. On pages 62 and 63 of this book, Fighting Corruption is Dangerous, written by former Nigerian Finance Minister Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, she wrote about how the attempt by herself and the federal government to save some money when Nigeria was making a lot of money from oil was blocked by the state governors. These people were like, let's spend the money, it will forever flow. Thinking that the price of oil will forever stay high is like thinking your favorite TV show will run forever. Spoiler alert, even Game of Thrones had its final season. This means that whenever the price of oil goes down, a country like Nigeria can't even afford to pay its workers.
While the balance of 37.93 billion required for COVID-19 vaccines, salaries and other health-related expenditures totaling 41.6 billion naira and 48.2 billion a recurrent component of defense and security will be funded by borrowing 135 billion naira from some special reserve levy account.
When compared with what we generated, one, it means the money we use to pay salaries was borrowed.
We've been borrowing to pay salaries for years, by the way.
It also applies to the national level here, where the federal government is clearly not just borrowing for projects,
irresponsible.
For salaries.
It's about state governors borrowing about 47 billion naira. State governors borrowing 47 billion naira. Now you might be wondering to yourself, The new governors, or the 28 governors who took their oath of office on 28th or 29th of May 2023, are they already borrowing money? I'll shock you to let you know, yes, they are borrowing money to also get salaries paid.
Could you shed some light on this? Because, I mean, I need to understand the principle. Why do we borrow to pay salaries? I thought we should borrow to perhaps finance infrastructure development.
Yeah, Mr. Journalist, I think I can help you answer that question with this news headline. Yes, Nigeria spent 96% of its revenue to service debt as at 2022. Whenever the price of crude oil goes down, Nigeria has no money left for anything else other than the money to service debt and the money to share among the politicians. Then you may want to ask, how come Nigeria has so much debt? Well, government after government borrows money for capital projects. Half of this money goes into private pockets, so many projects, as I have shown you, were never completed. Since these projects were never completed, they don't add any value to the people or serve any purpose to improve the Nigerian economy. Hence, the economy can't pay for the loan. Imagine you have a chicken. You feed this guy every day, but he never lays eggs and you can't eat it. That's what most of the Nigerian government loans are. Look at this economy again. Usually, industries here and hundreds of companies under them were built by individuals. These individuals often work long hours, learn, and have some luck to build their companies. The kinds of conflicts you will experience here would be between business partners, companies versus employees, or companies versus regulators. But when it comes to this economy, the kinds of conflicts you have is for the land, the soil upon which the oil is being extracted.
The federal government have decided to cut away all our wealth and decide to give us peanuts. Please allow us to manage our resources.
This is my own property.
No, it does not belong to everybody. These things are found on the land of the people.
This is our land! This is our land! The Nigerian government and its leaders be informed that the Niger Delta region is never a conquered land for any man born of a woman.
This oil is our own.
Again, because a lot of money comes from this tap, a lot of people are willing to invest in wars to get their share of the cake. This then leads to encouragement of what British Professor of Economics John E. Walker called political entry in this 2009 study. This means that in a country like Nigeria, a lot of people are desperate to hold a political office. With this desperation comes the willingness to get to power by all means.
Political power is not going to be served in a restaurant. It's not served in a la carte. It's what we are doing. It's being determined to do it. At all costs, fight for it, grab it, snatch it.
In his book, The Republic, Plato argues that the best person to be given political power is the person who has no interest in political office. In another work, The Laws, Plato further elaborates on this idea by suggesting that people who are too eager to seek political office are likely to be motivated by self-interest rather than a genuine desire to serve others. Plato argues that such people are more likely to abuse their power and act in ways that are harmful to the community. When it comes to Nigeria, this is 1000% true. Nigerian politicians often declare that they must win elections by any means possible.
Please, this is a do or die election. We must open our eyes, open our brains.
We must win this election.
My assessment of Nigeria's politics, it's like, how would I put it? Maybe like shark-infested waters. There's so much desperation among the players, especially the political class. It's a do or die affair. And it's frightening. It's frightening for me.
These politicians either have godfathers who are financing the rigging of elections, or they have billions of dollars they've stolen in previous political office.
The eve of the 2019 elections, showing 2 billion vans making their way into the APC presidential candidate Asiwaju Bola Tinubu's premises in Lagos.
Before and on election days, thugs are given money to steal votes and poor people are bribed to vote for a particular party. Nigerians call it vote buying.
The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has arrested 20 persons for alleged involvement in vote buying during the governorship and House of Assembly election in Kwara State.
Operatives of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission have arrested 14 suspected vote buyers in Utueke.
Operatives of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, that's the EFCC, monitoring the presidential and National Assembly polls, made some arrests of suspected vote buyers.
The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has arrested a man over allegations of vote buying in the Osun governorship election.
In the case where someone else knows how to rig an election more than you, so you lose in the poll, you can plan a coup. For 39 years, between when Nigeria got independence in 1960 to the Third Republic in 1999, military ruled for 29 years. That's 75% of the years. While Nigerian politicians are thieves with handguns, Nigerian military heads of states were armed robbers with AK-47. Take for example, this guy alone stole more than $5 billion in less than 5 years he ruled Nigeria. There's no better way to start this section than to show you this headline. According to the Nigerian Minister of Agriculture, Nigerians so much love anything made outside of the country that Nigerians order pizza. Yes, pizza from the UK and get it delivered via British Airways. In case you're wondering, yes, there are Domino's Pizza, Pizza Hut, KFC and McDonald's in every city in Nigeria. Also, in case you don't know, the Domino's Pizza you buy in the UK or US tastes just like Nigeria's Domino's Pizza. But for Nigerians, even though the pizza they order in the UK will be made by the same company that makes pizza in their streets, ordering it from the UK makes them feel good. According to this BBC publication, in 2014, Nigeria spent $9,372,920 to import Chinese toothbrushes. Let me repeat that. Toothbrushes. This thing. Does that mean Nigerians can't manufacture toothbrushes? No. Nigerians just love things that are made except in Nigeria. You can see this trait in the poorest as well as in the richest Nigerian.
Senator, there are other vehicles that are being produced locally, like GAC that has been coupled in Lagos. There is the vehicles that are being produced locally, owned by a Nigerian-owned company. There are a couple of them that goes with the same status, the same kind of features for about 40 million naira. Is there a reason why you do not want a locally made vehicle?
Today, we decided for
a foreign manufactured vehicle
for Toyota, because Toyota has a name and a long-standing name for quality.
It's from local manufacturers. Don't you think it will affect the economy? It will have an impact positively on the local economy?
Yeah, as time goes on, I've just said something, that we went for the vehicles that we chose because of one.
Well, at this rate, are you patriotic, you and your colleagues, Senator?
Yes.
Because Nigerians love things that are made outside their country, Nigeria plants rice, then exports unhusked rice, only to import the same rice after someone else has helped them husk it in the US. Nigeria exports its crude oil to the US, then imports finished petroleum. Nigeria has a mining sector where it can manufacture salt, but imports salt. Nigeria exports gazillion of metric tons of timber, but spends more than 6 billion naira to import toothpicks every year. Nigeria has 21.16 million heads of cattle, yet imports milk, yogurt and other dairy products. Whoosh. If not because I'm tired, I could have continued making the list. But you get the idea. An average Nigerian hates his things to be made in Nigeria. Then you may want to ask, what is wrong with that? What's wrong with loving made in UK stuff? Well, nothing except that when everybody in a country wants to import their KFC chicken from the US, you end up having a dollar-dominated economy. With the high demand for the US dollar in Nigeria today, the country is experiencing forex crisis. As of the time of making this video, $1 is exchanged for more than 1,000 naira, which is the local currency. To know how bad things have become in recent years, you need to be reminded that at some point in the 1980s, naira was more valuable than the US dollar. I started this video with the story of how Herbert Macaulay started the first nationalist movement in Nigeria. Nigerians were robbed with the cocoa buying agreement, which was also used for other farm produce, and how Nigerians were glad to become independent in 1960. I talked about how natural resources, in this case oil, that's supposed to be a blessing, turned into a curse for the Nigerian economy. First, oil made Nigeria forget its agriculture and manufacturing sectors because oil money is easy money. This then leads to unemployment and the inability of the government to pay its bills whenever oil prices crash. Second, oil made the Nigerian economy corrupt because a resource-based economy can easily be corrupted. With corruption in every corner of Nigeria's economy, what you see is most of the money meant for capital projects going into the pockets of individuals. Third, oil money encourages political entry. What that means is that politicians who have nothing to offer the people are encouraged by the amount of money they could make overnight. At the end of the day, what you have is a situation where 90% of politicians are thieves. Hardly can you build a country's economy with such a team. Fourth, I talked about optimism bias, which means the leaders of Nigeria hardly ever save money when the country makes too much from oil. It then means that when oil prices go down, the government doesn't even have money to pay its workers. Fifth, I talked about how an average Nigerian loves anything made outside of Nigeria. When a country imports pizza, toothpicks, and toothbrushes, such a country would not only kill its local manufacturing, but it will also have forex crisis and crazy inflation. While I'll confess that this video doesn't cover everything wrong with the Nigerian economy, I would also like to think that I've painted a good picture. And before you go, I need to say one more thing, and that is, there's hope for Nigeria's economy. Even though things aren't going well right now for Nigeria, this is the most populous black nation on earth, with more than 200 million people representing close to 20% of the entire African continent. Nigeria has human resources that could turn her into the China of Africa. With an economy that's the largest in Africa and 39th largest in the world at the time of making this video, Nigeria has hope. Nigerians buy roughly 720,000 cars per year, and 140,000 of them are being built domestically. Nigeria hosts about 60% of the pharmaceutical production capacity in Africa. Nigeria is Africa's largest ICT market with 82% of the continent's telecom subscribers and 29% of internet usage. Nigeria has a relatively well-developed banking sector by regional standards, with a regionally high level of banking penetration, 44.2% versus regional average of 17.8% for West Africa, and robust use of advanced financial instruments in the local economy. And yes, Nigeria still has an estimated 35.3 billion barrels of oil under its soil, making Nigeria the 10th most petroleum-rich nation and by far the most affluent in Africa. Nigeria is not a poor nation. It's the giant of Africa still asleep. Thanks for watching.